Good afternoon, everyone. Maybe this evening, depending where you are. Okay, still see plenty of people joining. First off, can anybody hear me and or see my screen? A great way to do that, I know we have a lot of new users here, is you can type in the question box. So if you open this little UI here, it should be on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can type in the question. Great. Okay, you can hear me. I know that like first step takes a little bit of learning curve itself, right? Awesome. All right, let's jump right in then, even though people are still joining. Wow, great to see so many new users. Awesome. Okay, so kicking it off, my name is Tim Cusick, and I am the Training Peaks WKO product leader. I am also a coach of select athletes. Um, Today's program is getting started with WKO5, and we're really going to be talking about your initial setup and basic kind of workflow stuff today. I'm going to do about a 10 to 15 minute presentation, but then I'm going to open my WKO in the background and actually demo everything I talk about. So most of my demo is going to just go pretty quick. As I go through the presentation, please feel free to ask questions as we go along. I have another screen. I'll be able to see the questions as they come up. Sometimes I'll answer them as they come up. Like I'll just stop and say, so-and-so has a great question. Or sometimes I know they're answered by the presentation, so therefore I'll just keep rolling on. But please feel free to ask them as you go. You can just simply open with this little orange arrow. You can open this UI on the right-hand side of your screen. UI means user interface. And you'll find questions. If you open it, you can type a question right where it says enter questions for staff, and I'll see it over here on a different screen. Excellent, let's jump right in. First, let's start with the WKO5 layout. For some of you which have used WKO4, there are some similarities and some differences, and obviously those that are new to WKO5, this is totally new. So just capturing some common language so it helps us for the rest of the discussion. This area up here is what we call the hero bar, and it's this section. I'm going to break these down in the next couple of slides. This bar up here is what we call your navigation bar. This is your data screen, and this is your RightHand Explorer. It's creatively named that because it's on the right-hand side of the screen. Kevin and I are not known for our naming expertise, but it works pretty well, RightHand Explorer. A lot of times you'll see the expression RHE, that's what it means, RightHand Explorer. Probably could have put that up here. A couple of controls to think about. You have your current view shown right up here in WKO5. Views are a big change from WKO4 to WKO5, but we'll get into what they are. You have sport type that controls your hero bar. So you have this little element going on here. You have some controls right here, which are settings, sync, and help. And then you have some metrics going on in the hero bar there. So let's break that down. Let's start with the hero bar. So in the hero bar, you can access athlete details by clicking on the athlete name. And you can access your athlete list by clicking. If you have more than one athlete, there's a little arrow when you hover over that's down that operates as a drop down. Now, if you think about the hero bar, I should have said this first, I guess. Let's split it in half, right? Imagine a line down the middle. The left-hand side has all of your athlete and PMC, your performance management chart metrics. So here you see Joe Ryder, their phenotype is a time trialer. We see here they're using their bike FTP. In WKO5, you can set multiple FTPs. So that might say run FTP, bike FTP, but that FTP is controlling the information we're seeing in the hero bar. Then you see weight, and these are your common PMC metrics available here. Over here on the right, we see your power duration curve metrics, Pmax, VO2 max, TTE, FRC, MFTP, and stamina. These are being controlled by the data you're selecting here in your sport type. And I'll demo this. If you can click on it, you could click indoor, road, mountain, or this is like the all bike symbol. So you can set it to whatever you want to show data here. And then you just have some controls up here. So that's your hero bar. When we reference the hero bar, we're talking about that section. Next is the navigation bar right below the HeroBar. That really has three sections. Section one is your workout and segments, and here's where you can toggle these on and off. You click on and off them. And the reality is they will open a left-hand Explorer, but I'll demo this in a minute. We then just have a calendar. If you want to use calendar view, you can click on there to see your calendar at any time. And then finally, we have the selection area. This is your user editable area. And this is all of the dashboards that you have within a view. Remember here in the HeroBar, I said this is a view, right? So this is the WKO Advanced Cycling view is open. Then this is all the dashboards, right, available in the WKO5 Advanced Cycling view. Now, one thing I didn't say about the HeroBar is the HeroBar is always based off the last 90 days. It is not controlled by the RightHand Explorer. It simply is always giving you a 90-day window. The reality is we're always looking at that 90-day window because that's basically, in a very rough term, the half-life of exercise. But that's a whole nother webinar. We'll get into that someday. So now you have your navigation bar, three sections, workout and segments. This is how you drill into a workout or you drill into a segment analysis. This is how you open your calendar, and these are all your view controls. We have the RightHand Explorer. This is very similar for WKO4 users. You have a range and filter up top. You have a secondary sport type selection. I'll explain why there's two when we get into the demo. And then you have some range controls down here, a little plus, a little minus, a little gear wheel. And again, and the gear wheel is you can add ranges, delete ranges, or select KPI, key performance indicators, which I will get to in a moment. Okay, now what happens if you select a workout or a segment? Remember, this is the area where we can toggle open. So you open by clicking on, you close by clicking on again. So toggle on and off. The dark highlights mean it's open. Once you open a workout or segment, we get a new left-hand Explorer, and one or two things change that's really important for people. I think this is a super cool feature, so you need to understand what it's doing. So basically, once you toggle it on, you have a I called this left-hand Explorer before, right? This is your right-hand Explorer. Maybe I did. This is your left-hand Explorer. So whenever you see these squares with selection, we call them Explorers. So now there's a left-hand Explorer. I got a report that somebody's having trouble with the audio and I should solve it. My audio is showing on my indicator as strong. If anybody else is having a problem, please post. If you're the one having the problem, it's probably your computer. Okay, great, thank you everybody. Yeah, everybody else is reporting okay, so it's probably your internet connection, sorry. So here is your left-hand Explorer. And in your left-hand Explorer, when you select workouts and segments are the actual workouts, and you can select one just by clicking on it. You also have additional controls down here. You can manually add workouts, delete workouts, and then add KPI information. I'm going to demo that. One of the more important things to think about is when you select a workout or segment, you see this little sport type. I know it's like really tiny, right? And probably pretty hard to see. But if you look at this little sport type, that's an indoor trainer. This one's road, this one's other. As soon as it sees the sport type, you notice it will auto control your HeroBar to match the power duration metrics of that sport type. Now you can always do reports and other stuff on all or whatever you want, but it's actually a pretty cool feature because while you're training indoors or outdoors, particularly for cyclists with the virtual training really being hot these days for probably more unfortunate reasons than we should talk about, but it gives you the ability to look at your indoor workouts versus your indoor. And if I clicked road, this would flip to road. So it really gives you that specificity if you want to review against those specific numbers. Nice kind of auto control. Next, let's talk about syncing and importing data. Pretty simple process. In WKO4, this is a little different. A lot of people who jump from WKO4 coming to WKO5 can't find athlete details because it used to be a chart. Now you just click on the athlete's name and it opens this background panel of athlete details. And you can simply sync by click on the athlete's name to open the panel. Right here where it says Training Peaks Athlete, just click edit and then enter your username, password, and find the athlete. Now, if you're a coach, right, use your coaching account, and then in this drop-down window, all of your athletes will be available. You don't need to do it for each athlete. You can just select the athletes that you want to sync, just they'll all be available. Excuse me while I take a drink. Okay, if for some reason your Training Peaks username or login are wrong or incorrect, it'll tell you this is correct. See, it says the username and password are valid. If it's invalid, it will tell you. And actually there's a link there that says, do you need help with your username and password? If you've forgotten it for some reason, click on the help. Okay, what about directly importing a device? Same as WKO4, just plug it in, wait a couple of seconds, and this little UI will pop up. It'll ask you, it'll show you the device ID number. It'll ask you if you want to associate that with the athlete. It'll use the open one as default, right? If you check here and say, always choose this athlete, let's say you're a single user. If you're a single user and you're like, oh, I always use this device. I don't want to have to click this box every time. If you put a check mark in here and then click import, in the future, every time you plug in that device, it will automatically load to that athlete. It won't even show you the UI. It'll just happen in the background like magic. That makes people nervous at times because they're like, my device didn't load. Oh wait, there's my file, right? So just know if you do that, it's gonna happen like magic. Just for the person who asked the question, all these are recorded and I will post it later. So if you joined late, you'll be able to catch up with the recording. All right, now this is really important for the WKO4 users in particular, because here's the stumbling point for a lot of people upgrading from WKO4 to WKO5. So in WKO5, right, you have different groups of information and data you can see. At the most basic level, you have charts and reports. A chart or a report is a summarized view of information. Users can select, edit, and build charts and reports. So you want a chart that shows your maximal power, mean, minimal power, average power, and some other power number. You can build a power chart or a power report. Pretty simple. Now, a dashboard is a selection of multiple charts and reports grouped together for a purpose, often to offer a well-rounded view of select data or data results. Users can select, edit, and build dashboards. So a dashboard is very simple, right? It's just a group of chart and reports that are put together for a reason. Wait, I'm having a little technical difficulty with that last question. I accidentally just closed my question box. Sorry about that. That's going to be a problem for a little while, I think. Let me just get to fix this now, or it's going to slow me down later. Okay. If you came late, I'll get to all your questions towards the end. So, report is at the core level, you have charts and reports. A group of charts and reports is a dashboard. Now a view, and this is not, you do not have a view in WKO4, but in reality, we created views to solve that WKO4 problem of, I have to adjust everything for multiple athletes, right? So the reality is a view is a selection of multiple dashboards grouped together to give the user a holistic view of the athlete or situation. Users can select, edit, and view and build views. So think about it this way, right? A view is a collection of dashboards, which is a collection of charts. You put them together as a view. Now, and Steve, you asked the question that's going to make your life so much easier. Once you apply a view, like let's say you create a view called My Perfect View, and you edit one chart in that view, all of the athletes using that view will now have that edit. So instead of having to go to each athlete and make the change, every athlete looking at that view will now have that change. So what you'll find is in WKO5, once you play with it, whether you're upgrading from WKO4 or you're new to it, we give you some basic and advanced views for different sport types, and you might end up just using those. As you build your own, eventually you tend to hone like your perfect 2 or 3 views for whether it's because you have road bikes and mountain bikers or run and try or whatever it is, then you just have to maintain those and they're great. Now in WKO5, all of your charts, dashboards, and views always save. WKO5, just like WKO4 did, never deletes anything. As a matter of fact, what we created in WKO5 was something called chart history, dashboard history, and even view history, where it saves those in the view. Now I want to go back to a question I did get here and talk about the way it works for something for sport types. When you do, I think it's important to come back to it, so sorry to jump around a little bit. You do not have to tag this as an indoor sport. Most of the times, like if you're using a Garmin or another head unit, you know, it has like a setting, you can use train, race, indoor. All Garmins now have an athlete profile called indoor, race, and train. Just set your head unit to indoor when you're indoor, if you're recording on your indoor, and it will tell WKO it's an indoor workout. Auto magic, you don't have to do anything. Most of the known virtual programs are now indicating that they're virtual training, virtual cycling, which WKO4 reads a series of those commands. There's a bunch of them that people use. I'm sorry, WKO5 reads those, and it will automatically mark that as indoor. Now, not all concepts are doing that. There are one or two online services, like virtual training services, that don't mark them as indoor. There's an easy way for you to mark it or to change it for your own, and I'll demo it. You don't need to tag it. So all of the tagging of indoor versus outdoor and everything you had to do in WKO4 is totally automated. Well, 98% is automated. If you have files that don't have it marked in, you're gonna have to do it, but 98% of it is automated. You don't have to do it. Okay, so remember, you have a view. A view is a combination of dashboards. A dashboard is a combination of charts. How do you manage views? Well, it's when you first use WKO5, whether you're new or an upgrader, I really encourage you to look at some of the different views. There's a shortcut or two I'm going to teach you, but you want to start this way. There's a little arrow here that clicks down. You have dashboard selections, right? But you have choose an existing view, and that will open up the view library, which will look like this. There is a filter on top of the view library. You want it to view, always use the term library. What the library means is we actually maintain those on our server. Those are charts that have been vetted. It doesn't mean everyone's perfect, because a lot of people send charts in or submit charts. We try to check them, and then we'll store them in the library if they're good and they work. So the view library is what we support out of WKO. Whether that's a view library, a dashboard library, or a workout library, that's the same, and those will be there. Now, as you'll see when I demo, you also have view history, right? And you also have your views or my views. So you can save your own, and even if you delete them, the old ones will be in your view history. The same will be true for a dashboard, the same will be true for a chart. So it never deletes anything. Okay. Give you a little information. I'm going to demo. You can have some of your KPI setting, like what these reports are. I'll show you that in a moment. All right, let's go to the next step. Let's go into the demo. It's much easier to demo, right, than look at boring slides. Now, I'm going to confess right up here, I have again made one of the biggest mistakes in demoing. I'm running a test version. I'm a couple of versions ahead of most people on the screen. So if you see anything weird, ignore it. If you see any new ideas, ignore it. Don't post it on Facebook, please. All right, so let's start with the HeroBar. So up here we have the actual HeroBar, right? When you look at it, you can actually, one of the things that you can do in a HeroBar is if you just grab this bar, let's say you wanted more screen size, you can drag and change the depth of the HeroBar. I typically run mine like this in the middle because I like a lot of screen size. By the way, I have weird data and charts in here. This is just a sandbox, so you're going to see some data that doesn't make sense. And if you even want to make it smaller, you could do the same. Just grab the bar. It can be a little tricky on PC. I don't use PC that much. And the reality is it's hard, particularly hard when I'm doing a go-to webinar. So if you want to make it super small, you can just do that, you know, and then if you wanted to do it larger, just drag it back down. Whatever floats your boat, it's sizable. That's true with all bars and explorers. So the HeroBar and the left and right hand explorer can all be adjusted, see the arrow there, in the same way. So that really gives you a lot of screen size control. If you want more screen and you want these to, that left and right hand to auto open and close or whatever, just drag them around and explore and experiment with it. If you like a full size HeroBar, great, leave it on full size. I'm going to leave it on full size for now because it just makes a better demo. So let's start over here on the left-hand side where we have rider information. You can see I have multiple athletes. So as soon as I hover over, it goes dark, right? Anything that goes dark when you hover over is a selection, meaning you can click on it and it's going to do something. So if I click on this, right? If I click on Joe Ryder, which I'm going to do in a little later to show you a demo, it would show you the athlete details. Oh, actually, I just do it, no big deal, right? And if I click on the little down arrow, I get an athlete list. And as you can see, is a bunch of different athletes in here. Now notice what this looks like. This looks a lot like the RightHand Explorer, right? So everything that opens is an Explorer. And every Explorer we can add or minus things from, right? So if I wanted to add a new athlete, I would simply push this plus button and new athlete would come up. If you do it twice, it'll just number the athletes. If I was to do it again, it would go there, but I don't want to go right to the new athlete yet. So pretty simple. You can add athletes by clicking the plus. And if you want to delete athletes out of your system, you could click minus. Now, wherever you see a little gear wheel, you notice it lights up, so it means I can click on it. The gear wheels allow you to customize the view of an Explorer. So if you want to add KPI, key performance indicators, I have two options here, show PD metrics and show PMC metrics. So if I select it, notice now for each one of my athletes, I have my PMC metrics. And if I wanted PDC metrics, I also have that based on their sport type setting. So if you like longer lists with a bunch of summary information, great. If you want your list to be tight and just short, great, right? So now, one of the things that you can also do with your athlete list is up here, you notice it says all athletes, there's filters. So I have road, test, WKO. Not sure why I did it that way, I gotta be honest, but because I do a lot of demos. But let's just say I say test. So notice I have about 10 athletes there. Once I say test, oh, okay, now I'm down to 2. So how do I get that? This is an excellent way for coaches to manage multiple athletes. Simply go into the tags here. You notice these tags that I've entered are road, test, so you can enter multiple tags per athlete, right? And to enter a tag, you just click in and I'll just say like new test, enter. And then that becomes another tag, right? All tags, if you notice now when I drop down, it's funny, I might have chose one that's not gonna work. Yeah, so it's seeing the word test. It's because test is inclusive in new test. I did a bad job. So when it does search, like test and new test are the same because it sees test as the same word. I shouldn't have done that. You get the point, it'll be there in search. And then once you choose those out, if I want to do WKO athletes, only Joe Ryder is WKO, that's a great way for managing, like, here's my road cyclists, my mountain bikers, my runners, right? So then you can just use that quick filter to only see your runners. When you have old athletes, maybe tag all of your active athletes as a coach as active, like in my real WKO, that's what I do. So I'm only seeing my active athletes now. So you have all kinds of functions to drive that selection process with. So I'm going to set that back to test because that's going to give me some options later to demo. Then when we see the metrics here, right, we actually see that you can click, I mean, look at that CTL. Man, that's pretty fit. You can click on any one of these metrics. And what it does is it will bring up the little user interface, a UI. That's where you set your metric constants. So use your default sets for ATL, the default setting is 7. But you can also set a warning, right, which would turn your data yellow. You notice some is yellow here and some is red and some is normal. But a warning would turn your data yellow, and alert would turn your data red. So let's say I wanted to get a warning, meaning if the ATL was over 65. right? So I change that to 65, close, notice it turns yellow. That's a pretty good way for you to just use color coding to give you some quick alerts. So you can set all of those when you hover over them, you can set them right there. Now, if you want to set weight and other metrics, click on the athlete's name. And here's where you find, so there's the demo, right? I click on it. Now you can see all of athlete metrics are here. So here's all of your different maximal heart rates, threshold powers, and all of the metrics that you have on Training Peaks. So if you're tracking metrics like HRV on Training Peaks, if you're tracking sleep, if you're tracking anything, feelings, RPE, all the things that you can track, they're going to be available here for you to use, and you could actually use all of those in your charts and reports. So it'll automatically, and I think one of the biggest breakthroughs in WKO5 that is still underutilized is we're not using that subjective data, athletes' RPE, athletes' feelings, athletes' fatigue. When you put together quantitative data and that subjective data, you get some pretty interesting results. This will show you everything that's available. If it's not on this list, it's because the athlete or the data is not there. So somebody's asking if we can sync the Whoop into WKO5. Absolutely, the Whoop syncs automatically with Training Peaks. Therefore, it pulls down those metrics for utilization in charts and reports. Just use the data. It pulls it down as HRV. It doesn't say Whoop. It's not device specific, but it will pull the HRV data that you're putting up there down. And there's more data in a Whoop also than that, I think, but you get the point. Okay, now moving over to the right for the HeroBar, this is really important, right? So actually, I'm gonna just pick something short here. So as I look at data happening here, this is the sport type selection kind of deal. So the reality is if I click on this and I want to see up here in the HeroBar different sport types, see if I click on it, I have bike, run, and I have run and walk, row. I can tell you, I know there's a couple of run coaches on here. We will be doing some sub sports in run additional. I know we want treadmill and trail and some things like that. We are working on that, but we've done bike so far. So you could change it to indoor bike. Now, if you noticed when I changed it to indoor bike, this data set changed, right? So now all of my power duration curve metrics are just set on the indoor data. And if I clicked on all bikes, you'll notice it changes back. The data that I'm changing here is only the data available in the HeroBar. It does not affect your data screen. That is what this data selection is for. So it really is just your summary information up here in the HeroBar. There are some things here. You can click the settings. Here's where you set what metric or English, when start your week, what's your default view, how you download from Training Peaks. I highly recommend just setting that to once per hour and leave it be. You'll never really notice your sync. The little red bar will say syncing, but just let it happen in the background. I have mine in manual so it doesn't sync while I'm demoing and change, and where you store your data. That all can be changed. This button triggers a manual sync. I'm not going to push it right now just for that. And this button launches the help site, and I will show you that as the last demo, just to not launch the site. All right, now let's talk about the RightHand Explorer. So in the RightHand Explorer right now, you see these multiple sport types. If you were to take out one, so here, it's so hard for you guys to see. I wish I had like some blow up, I can make it bigger. This is the road bike symbol. So I take road bike out of this data, you notice it immediately changes and recalculates. If I look at mountain bike or I take away all the data that I have biking, you see it changes. So what the charts are doing here is it's following the data that I'm from the sport type that we're telling it, bike, mountain, run, everything's in here. So the reality is you can edit that. That's a common mistake. We get a fair amount of people who post on Facebook and say, my data disappeared, but they don't have the sport type selected. It's some reason it's accidentally been deselected. Now in the right-hand Explorer, we also have range filters. So if you click that down, you can flip between your own custom created ranges and all ranges. I'm going to show you some tricks with filters later that any filter has the same trick to work. So I just didn't want to demo it 3 times, but I'll show you that later. Then here's all your available. If you want to add a time range, you simply can hit plus. If you want to delete a time range, you can hit minus. And again, here you see the little gear wheel. So right now I have no KPI selected, but if I wanted to look at, dates and metrics, bam, how much training, total miles, total TSS, whatever floats your boat. Or let's just say I want to turn them off. I could turn them off. So you want it clean, you want KPI. We really try to make it clearly, as I'm sure you guys are seeing the trend, is we really want to make it something that you can edit and make your workflow, your software. If you want to add a range, one click type, like if I click plus a range, it's just going to select new range. You notice you have a from and to, which are dates. But a trick you'll remember you'll enjoy after you get more and more used to doing this is first you name it, like I'm just going to name this Tim Test, right? And let's just say you don't always have to use dates. You can use expressions, which is part of the chart building technique, which is kind of the next level of learning. But let's just say I want to use from, I wanted something, I always want it to be like the last 42 days. So I want to be today. I always want it to be to today, right? I want the data to today, and I could use today minus 45. So instead of having to figure out the calendar dates and change and whatever, Tim's test now shows the last 45 days. You see it over here. So I'm using the last 45 days. That really makes your user ranges very customizable if you want them to keep up with today. You could do today minus 45 to today minus 7. Right? And it will change again. Totally up to you, but that's how you add or delete items in the left and right-hand Explorer. All right, now let's talk about your navigation bar. So I'm going to stay away from the workout and segment toggles. You have a calendar. You want to see calendar views with circles per workout. Colors follow Training Peaks compliance colors, so it will give you some information about compliance. This athlete is total slacker, right? Actually, they don't look like they have many workouts and stuff like that, and what they are doing aren't very big. But the reality is you get the point. And the calendar will follow what you have selected. Notice how it changed, what you have selected in the right-hand Explorer. Your data screen is always going to be driven by the time range here unless you specifically set up reports to ignore it. Now we get into our user dashboard. Notice up here, the WKO5 basic cycling view is selected. Now we have the dashboards that reside within that, such as training, performance, whatever. I don't want to go through them all, you get the point, right? And you can simply select through them by clicking on them. Now you can scroll through dashboards. There's stuff up and down, look through the default ones. You can always find the default ones by clicking down, choose an existing view. I'm going to demo that in a minute. But also if you were like, man, I don't like big charts, I want small charts. Well, you can just grab the corner of a chart in WKO5 and say, I want to do that, and I want to put that one up there so that I have both of those side by side. Again, customize it as you see fit. Now, remember when you're making these saving, I just changed that. Any athlete using the basic view now will have those charts look like that. It will update it updates the view, and it only is what, you having that view applied to athletes. But now let's say when, look at this tiny little chart, this chart's too small, and when I do want to see it, I want to see it bigger. You notice the bar lights up when you hover over it. Remember, anything like that you click on, if you just click on it, it docks that chart, and now I get the big view, right? And I can just go back to whatever I was looking at. Small view, it leaves it in the dock so I can get back. If you want to take it out of your dock, just hide that chart, and you're back. Everything is customizable. You can build it. Once you build your perfect view, you're going to use it for all your athletes. And like I said, you'll have 2 or 3. So anything you select through here is a dashboard. Now let's say that I have the view. I want to change my view. So I'm going to click here, choose an existing view, and you notice it launches this UI. At the center of this, at the top of this UI, it says My Views. These are the ones that I've edited and saved. You notice there's some weird names. If you want the default ones, the ones that are saved in the library, and they're always saved in our library, you cannot corrupt the library. When you change a file, when you change a view, it ends up in My Views, but the defaults are always in View Library. If I was to just click on that, it would show me what's here. These are the ones available by default with WKO. And if I clicked on this, I look at View History. I haven't deleted any, but if you deleted them, they would be in there. So I'm going to go to the View Library, and let's say I want to open the advanced, let's see, what do I have open here? Basic. So let's say I wanted to open the advanced cycling view. All I have to do is double click on it. I'm going to overwrite because I was experimenting with it there. So what it's doing now is it says WKO Advanced View here, right? And it's changed my view. It actually happens to be on a similar chart set, but it's a new view. You notice like there's some different things up here, like metrics. Now, once you've clicked through a couple of views, you notice back up here in your HeroBar that the view name actually highlights also, and there's a little down arrow. If you click it, it'll show you your recently used views. Let's say you only use 3 views. You don't need to go through the whole choose a view over here, right? Just go through your recently used ones, big time savings. So I'll leave this on advanced view. Now let's say to this advanced view, I wanted to add a dashboard. Well, if I click the same arrow, all the data screen management comes from here. I can add an existing dashboard or create a new one. Let's just focus on add an existing dashboard. Now here we get dashboard all libraries, dashboard library, or dashboard history. So dashboard history are the things I've deleted. So you can see I have some deletes in there. It actually shows when. But I'm going to look at the dashboard library. Now notice there's a there's a term here that says, search. So let's say I wanted to search something. I might use like MMP, right? And it immediately brings me up any chart name, dashboard name with MMP in it. So very powerful search, really helps. Now let's say I wanted to read, or I don't like just looking at the name. I wish I had a little description when it's available. I'm going to go down to the gear wheel here. Again, I can set KPI. I can show details. So most charts have a description. Some don't because they were submitted and we're still gathering or we missed it. And some charts have a thumbnail so they could actually see what they look like. I like a nice clean chart list, so I might close those. But again, you notice how in every time you open Explorer, you have a filter, some form of search, and the ability to set the data you're looking at. So that's how you pick dashboards. Now, I can also, if I want to add a chart to a dashboard, I'm going to demo this in Whiteboard. So there's Whiteboard in most of the views, which is just an empty chart because it's a great way to kind of do your thinking without messing up your view. So if I wanted to add a chart to Whiteboard, look when I hover over, I get that little down arrow. I can add an existing chart. And now I can, same filters. I'm going to use the chart library. I'm going to look at, I don't know, metrics. So you can see there's a lot of things with the name metrics in it, right? But it's pulling up everything with the name metric. And if I want to apply one, I don't know, PDC metric profile for cycling, there it is. I want to reshape it because I want it to be smaller or bigger or whatever. Make it whatever you want. Totally customizable by you. So now hopefully that gives you some insight into managing your views, which are a group of dashboards, right? Which are a group of charts. And then, once you build your view, the ones we give you, the basic and advanced ones are pretty solid and should be a pretty good start, so you might just find using them easier. But if you want to get to the point where you customize things like that, more power to you. Okay, let's start drilling down into workouts and segments. So let's start with workouts. So in a workout, as soon as you click the button, you toggle on workout. I don't want that. Ruined my demo. So let's just look at, let's just take, first we start with a filter. like here's that test I built, right? I forget what it was, so I better just use the last 30 days. So by setting that filter, what I'm seeing here is the last 30 days of training. So now I have a filter, last 30 days. And I can add a manual workout or delete a workout here. Or again, I can set KPI. Let's say I don't want to see the metrics, I just want the title. Now I just see titles, right? So you can do that in every one. One of the tricks, right, and this is true for any time you see a filter, it's actually a search bar also. So you could, let's say I want to search for SST intervals. So I type SST in there, let it calculate. You notice now, look at all the titles. It's gone and found all of the workouts I've done for SST. It's gone and done, it'll find, like if I did the same for VO2 max, which was the sample I had when I flipped over, I must have left it from the last demo. Right, so if you go in and search VO2 max, now it finds all your VO2 max workouts. So that's a very powerful search. If you're looking for unique type of workouts, you know, it will find those workouts for you. So pretty cool feature in the end of the day. And it finds them all of your history for that. So let's say you find one, and here's a VO2 meetup workout, so probably a Zwift dealio. And you can see that workout. I've got, you know, I've showed you how to adjust and change the KPI. So pretty easy access process. Now, once you have a workout selected, you'll notice that the RightHand Explorer has changed, and now I have peaks or ranges, I should call them, which we have laps, right, and peaks. So laps and peaks. So you can see all of these laps and peaks. I'm just going to choose a lap here. Let's choose an interval, right? There's the first interval. Now over here in the interval, you notice that we have average, minimum, max of power, heart rate, cadence, and speed. Yep, most people probably guessed. You can show average, minimum, show duration. Just turn them off. Let's just take out the minusing. So you, again, can edit it. Now, when I select this, you notice it has this little gray area highlighted in here. One of the things, if you wanted to do, like you could zoom, I could click on that and I could zoom in on the lap 5. I can do some other things with it too, but it's selected. But here's a powerful tool, right? In WKO4 and WKO5 both do this. I'm on a PC, so I'm going to hold down Control, but if you're on a Mac, you would hold down Command. And let's say I selected lap 7, lap 9, lap 11, lap 13. And let's just call it that. I mean, I could select lap 14 and complete, or 15 and complete the set, right? Yep. So now I have all the laps selected. So notice the multiple selections here. Look what it does to your reports. I can see my laps. They were all exactly 2 minutes and 57 seconds. This must have been a Zwift workout to be that precise, right? And you see all the data for those. So, you know, and these are in some of the learning the future lessons, and they'll show you how to work with that. You can build any chart and report for what we call this compare mode. You know, so if I looked at intervals, it's more vibrant for compare mode. So the reality is, and this should be expanded. I have something strange selected in there because I flipped it over. But here you can see the, you know, average power of each 292, 305, 311, 316, 318, 316. Great. Or you can just look at one lap. So now someone made a comment that when they choose that lap, what was that first lap? I think it was that one. When they choose a lap, it's more zoomed in. It's automatically zooming. So you can set any chart to zoom or highlight. So see here, this little arrow on a chart. If you click it down, click configure this chart. And if you look at here, the data series or the range, you can zoom or highlight. So we're selecting ranges here, right? If it's set on highlight, highlight means it's going to pick it up and highlight it within the entire data range. Or if you want to zoom it, it's zoom. So the person asking that question, yours is probably set to zoom, which I think the interval one is automatically set to zoom, but just set it to what you want. I do both all the time in my personal settings. Like what I do is I'll put this chart twice, and up top I have it in highlight mode, and right below it, I put it in zoom mode. So that when I select the intervals up top, I can see when they happened, and right below I can overlay them all and get excellent insight from overlaying, which is what this was doing. So let's just do this. So now I'm holding control down, right? And I'm picking 2 laps. It's that lap, that's wacky. Picking 2 laps. So the reality is, and this is a Swift file, which is a little odd. You notice now though, I'm scrolling over the data. I can actually see the data up here at any given time and then compare them. But there's also much more vibrant comparisons like interval trends, cumulative data changes, power trend plus or minus. So the interval segment really comes to life when you start doing compare mode. So here I can see cumulative change of this person was gaining power. They actually went up 2.8 watts. They were going up 0.01 watts per second, or RPM, this is RPM we're looking at. So the reality is it gives you excellent insight to drill in and go deeper. So you need to set that up. If you like zoom or highlight, you can customize by you. But remember, once you change it, that changes it for every time you're using that view, and all the athletes will always see it all the same. Hopefully that helps. Okay, now let's move on to something you might have saw it in here. This is, I want to do it on Swift because it's not going to be a good test. Let me go back to SST. Maybe there's an SST one here. So SST, so let's just say we did some long workouts somewhere. Funny thing, I should have probably planned this out better because now I got to remember where the workout was. But let's just say, I'll show you an example and then I'll demo it, okay? All right, that's not a bad one actually. So let's just say we're looking at laps, and I'm picking a lap here where, okay, that lap looked a little harder. Like that was my, like I'm out doing intervals, right? And lap 12 was my last interval. So if you notice, when it's selected, I can go back down here to the gear wheel, and it actually happened when I, it gave me the option out of the chart, but it's easier to do here. Notice it says create a smart segment using lap 12. So I'm going to select that to create a smart segment because you know what? I ride that road a lot. That's a road that's common. I'm doing laps on that all the time. And I'm going to call that WKO5 test lap. And I'm going to close. And you're going to watch it calculate up here real quick. So see it calculate, right? Now what I can do is I can go into my segments. And I have WKO5 test lap. Let's hopefully I've done it. Yep, bam, good. I've done that a fair amount. Awesome, 138 times. Oops, yours won't have that. This is a feature, just a little add-on coming up. Now look over here in the RightHand Explorer. Here's all the times I did that segment where I'm typically doing out and back sweet spot work, right? Here's all the times I've done that segment forever. And it's ranking them in some order, just like a leaderboard in Garmin or Strava, right? I can add KPI. Let's say I want to show the averages for that so I can really compare them, like every time I've done that lap. And actually right now I can immediately tell they're ranking them by power. So you can rank them by power or duration. The Strava process is duration. I have power ranked here from my strongest down to my weakest. You can immediately see this was a minute slower than this. That's kind of weird, right? So what if I want to rank them by duration? Now there is my fastest one going down into some of my slower ones. It's funny, you can quickly see here, what's the average power, 242 versus, this is an out and back, kind of longer road with wind problems. Here's a 277. So the idea here is you can take like your local climb, your local run, your local whatever, make it a smart segment, and then compare how you've done every time there. And what's cool is the same controller command, the same compare mode. So if I want to see what the difference was in my top 3, and I want to do, oops, I should look at intervals. And I want to do what those were, I can look at the charts, I can build custom reports, I can do all kinds of things to, look at speed, look at data. I don't have really exciting charts going or reports here, I could see how they compare, like these two were gaining cadence, this one was a declining cadence. I could find out is there something specific happening in my fastest one or whatever it is. You can do the analytics to dig into smart segments. Smart segments are a pretty powerful tool once you get to use and to master them. Very, interesting and in the sense of, and a really good workflow. That's probably the word I'm looking for. Really good workflow of how it all flows. Okay. I think that's a pretty good view of the overall. I'm going to answer one question. I've left it kind of hanging there in the group just before I go into the help resources for everybody, and we'll wrap it up. Somebody asked, can I look at data generated at different altitude? Absolutely. There's actually a whole altitude chart set dashboard in there. You can run power duration curves for different altitudes. If you train a lot at mixed altitudes, I would absolutely have and be using that dashboard. You could put, mean max power at 8,000 feet versus mean max power at 1,000 feet, whatever floats your boat. So it's very possible and feasible. There's like I said, there's some charts in there already to get you started, or you can just build your own. All right, let's close on help. So if you click this little question mark button, it's going to launch a browser into WKO5 help. There is a section if you're new, just click on new to WKO4, click here to get acquainted, and it will do like a simple webinar. You're actually going through the webinar now live, so I wouldn't watch that. But there's all kinds of little 2-minute tutorials to help you really get up and rolling and how to manage these little explorers and everything else like that. So excellent set there. There is a series of items. If you're back to overview, you notice you can click on tabs. So here's just quick directionals, smart segment view. You can go to athlete, same idea, shows you the athlete view. And you'll notice here's learn more. All the how-to links will work. Here's how you navigate around through charts, reports, dashboards, and views. Again, short little videos. All of these videos are pretty short. This is a key page guide. Again, this is the same webinar you're going through, so you don't need to watch it. If you want to wow, how do I deal with views? Here's all the links to short little videos to help you get through it. If I want to deal with dashboards, right? I want to work out some smart segments. Everything is in there for you. Make sure you use the guide. There's a free training power ebook you can download. It's the process of power training with WKO. Feel free to download that and skirt through it. Here's the expression guide, which is for future. You could submit a request here. And then we do have an educational center, which walks you through getting started. You could just click on learn the basics. And again, that actually was the page I started on, so same page. Here's a set about how to individualize your training. Here's some really good webinars and break down the power duration model, phenotype, Pmax. All these are shorter videos versus the one up top is always the longer webinar. And then you have 2-minute tutorials down below available for you. Here is a system of coaching and training with WKO. Here's the overview. All these are shorter, but it walks you through the step-by-step process of how to, get the most out of your coaching with WKO. It really is my coaching process shared. How to use analytics better, how to create analytics. So people want to get into chart building. All kinds of videos teaching you how. Here's the advanced webinar. Here's a bunch of short ones, different lessons on how to build charts and stuff like that. So you have tremendous resources on the site. If you notice in the Facebook, how many times I'm just linking somebody back, right? I'm just linking somebody back. Go on here and spend some time, flow around. I think you'll find a lot of help. Okay, excellent. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna answer, you guys plow in the questions. If people don't want to participate in the Q&A at this point, please feel free to drop off. That's pretty much the webinar. I've got one longer question I'm going to read. You can use that time to ask your questions. And if not, I appreciate you being on. So here's the question. Tim, I was wondering if there's a way to ignore data from a workout or a doubled workout. Case 1, athlete did a triathlon, has a watch and a head unit. It doubles the ride. Case 2, multi-sport athlete has a watch. For some reason, WKO TP has the entire duration and distance. So in both of those cases, um, I would fix the file. I know it's kind of a cop-out answer. WKO should remix the files. And if it doesn't, because it was recorded twice or there's some strangeness with the device, I would just fix the file. There is no system that will tell it to ignore, because what happens when you have ignore, it really negatively impacts the caching of data. And it will force everything to recache every time you ignore something, and that's going to really slow the system down. We've had that request a couple of times. I know it's actually on the list, but it's one of those things that seems simpler that's really more problematic. You have what we call in software development consequences. Make one easy decision to solve one problem and you create two more. So the consequences are kind of the barrier. We haven't solved it. Can you delete a view? Yeah, you can delete a view, just delete it out of the folder. We didn't give a system for deleting views because we didn't want people to build a perfect view and find a way to rip it out. So you can do that. Okay, cool. I think we've got everybody. Appreciate your attention. Okay, here's a question. Can you copy a chart you've modified and put it in a view? Yes, Caleb, every time you modify a chart, it's saved in My Charts. So if you want to add it to a dashboard, just look at Find Existing Charts, look at My Charts. So what you would do, right? Like let's say to this interval dashboard, I wanted to add this super secret new chart I built. Just click the arrow, and I copied a chart, I edited it, in a different view or whatever. I can add an existing chart. It's going to give me the little UI. I want to go to all charts is the best way. Actually, for chart level, you're always better using all charts because you get all the defaults, all you whatever. And whatever you named it is, see if I have any charts named after me. Yeah, well, there's a lot with TIM in it, but whatever your chart is, just search it. And let's say I want to put that chart in there. If you double click it, it'll add it. Now, the thing is, this is a pretty busy chart, so there it added it on the bottom, what I added. So make sure you scroll down to look for if it's added. Now, every athlete using WKO Basic Cycling Workout View now has that chart in the view. Yeah, a great way is to modify the chart name once you've modified it. Or if you just want to use that everywhere, you don't need to modify the name, just you need to know what you're looking for. You know what I mean? If you want to use the chart, like me, I deal with so many charts, I forget names all the time. So I have a naming system to remember my important charts. So it really is up to how good your memory is, I guess, and mine isn't that good anymore. So I have to use some select techniques. Hopefully that gets everybody off to a good start. I'm getting back, and if you notice, there's a lot of recorded webinars. If you haven't seen the playlists of all the recorded webinars, please ask in the Facebook group and we'll list it. There is an excellent free online program to mastering WKO5 and Training Peaks University. So just Google search Training Peaks University WKO5. It'll take you to the Training Peaks University site. It's totally free to WKO5 users. Feel free to go through it. It's kind of like the next step, going a little deeper. Some of it's redundant to what you just learned. Some of it's next step. Or feel free to ask questions in the Facebook group. We'd be glad to answer. Cool. I think we're good. Thanks everybody for being on. We'll talk soon.